We've got Pete Buttigieg. Oh, so exciting. Cory Booker, and then right before Biden, a guy who probably represents the Democratic Party most at this stage in time, Michael Bloomberg. So that's the person they reserve for right before Biden. I mean, one thought. Oh, by the way, Anna Kasparian here as well.
Oh, hey.
Hey, Cenk and Anna covering tonight for you guys. Live play-by-play coverage. We'll give you all the analysis as they do the speeches as we have every night. We're gonna do this for the Republican convention as well, so don't miss that. That's gonna be a show. Okay, I mean the Democratic one is calm and arguably too boring. The Republican one, for all of its faults, will likely not be boring. They'll probably say insane things on a very regular basis. So, but it's possible that they're putting Bloomberg in there before Biden because they don't want anyone to upstage him, and they're sure that he'll give a better speech than Bloomberg. But it's also possible that they're giving Bloomberg a giant spotlight there right before the biggest speech because he paid for it. He's now given tens of millions of dollars to different Democratic Party officials. They all owe him, and that's why they say nice things about him. I think Stacey Abrams is a really interesting person. I think there's a lot of things to like about her, and there's a couple of issues. But the way that she supports Mike Bloomberg is embarrassing, honestly. And I don't mean to pick on her. I could name you dozens of politicians who I otherwise like, who are like, oh, stop and frisk. What's the big deal? Mike Bloomberg, yay. Funded a lot of things we work on. And by the way, some of the stuff he works on is good, but it's not how democracy should work. So, but it is how it works right now. All right, I'm gonna get the festivities started with you guys. So we've been doing this lately, and I kind of love it because I love hearing who you guys are because you make this show possible. So, folks who have subscribed while we're on the air, this was, I think, at the end of the regular show. Nate Williams, Brianna Santella, Rebecca Reeser, and Brianna Santella upgraded membership. So love it. You can hit the join button below in order to subscribe. And of course, guys, look, all this is possible because of your support. And that's tyt.com/go. That is a great way to support us. We really need to get through this year. I think we're gonna be okay if we do, but you help us do this strong progressive voice. And obviously we got commentary on here like you're not gonna see anywhere else. You know what you're gonna get with MSNBC is gonna be fawning coverage. You know what you're gonna get with Fox News is gonna be largely disastrous and filled with lies. And here we're gonna keep it real on what's right, wrong, true, and false. So Anna, any thoughts on tonight before we get started?
Well, since you mentioned how real we keep it, I'll go ahead and keep it real right now. I think that the DNC so far, the convention has been uncomfortable to watch at times, embarrassing to watch at times. I think that the slate of speakers really gives you a sense of what the priorities are for the Democratic establishment. And just how much of an uphill battle it is for progressives to, make any type of headway with establishment Dems. Like they will fight progressives as hard as they possibly can to prevent them from succeeding. And I think, it's not just the politicians, it's also the way that certain things get covered, the way that AOC's incredible speech and message was completely, we gotta go to this speech. Let's go to Andrew Yang.
72% of Americans believe that this is the worst time we have ever experienced. And 42% of the jobs that have been lost, millions of jobs, will never return. We are in a deep, dark hole, and we need leaders who will help us dig out. I know many politicians promise and then fail to deliver. If you voted for Trump or didn't vote at all back in 2016, I get it. Many of us have gotten tired of our leaders seeming far removed from our everyday lives, and we despair that our government will ever rise to the challenges of our time. But we must give this country, our country, a chance to recover. And recovery is only possible with a change of leadership and new ideas. Bold and innovative policies that will get help into your hands in the midst of this crisis are now possible. But we need your help to turn the page for our country in 75 days. We are here tonight to celebrate Joe Biden's nomination as the Democratic candidate for president. I have gotten to know both Joe and Kamala on the trail over the past year. The way you really get to know a person when the cameras are off, the crowds are gone, it's just you and them. They're real people. They understand the problems we face. They are parents and patriots who want the best for us and our country. And if we give them the chance, they will fight for us and our families every single day. Our future is now, and it is daunting. But I ask you tonight to join me to help Joe and Kamala fight for the promise of America, turn the page for our country, and lead us forward to a future we'll actually be proud to leave to our children. And now I'd like to turn it over to a great Democrat who'll be with us throughout the evening. Between the two of us, we have 11 Emmys. How's that for math? One of my favorite actresses, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Hey, Julia.
Hi, Andrew. I'm so glad to see you. So what did you think about Kamala Harris's speech last night?
It was tremendous. I was so happy for her.
I know, me too. She was fabulous. I cannot wait to see her debate our current Vice President, Mika Pence. Or is it Paints?
It's pronounced Ponce, I believe.
Oh, some kind of weird foreign name?
Yeah, not very American sounding.
Yeah, that's what people are saying strongly. Well, thank you, Andrew. And please give my regards to the gang.
I will. They're right in the next room. Have a great night, Julia.
Thank you so much. Good evening, America, and welcome to the fourth night of the 2020 Democratic National
Convention. All right, Anna, how cringy was that?
Oh my God, so cringy, please stop. I love her, by the way. She's amazing. It's like, but she can't help it. They made her do this. They made her do this.
It was a hostage video, we know it. So
it's tough. It's tough because this is an unprecedented situation where they're doing everything online. It's all virtual, and so of course there are going to be these awkward moments. But let's not needlessly make it even more awkward by trying to be funny. I think you can be funny if you do something online or virtually, but I just think that the DNC is probably the least suited to make that happen. Anyway, I'm being too much of a downer. I apologize. It was great. Wow, that was super entertaining. I am amused.
How great was that Kamala Harris speech last night? It was super good. Okay.
No, let's do an MSNBC right now. Like, oh my God, did you see that back and forth with Andrew Yang and Julia Louis-Dreyfus? Oh my gosh, that was incredible. That's the thing. You have these people come on, they're entertaining, they're comedic, they're talented. There.
Yeah, my nads dropped 4 inches. I just stricken by it. Anyways, look, we got to go in and out here and do the play-by-play for you guys because a lot of this stuff is either fluff or cringy, etc., and is not relevant. We try to get you all the relevant parts, obviously, but as we're bringing up the volume on the speakers, like Andrew Yang, we might lose 5 or 10 seconds, and that's like 12% of their speech. So what did Andrew get, like 2 minutes there? And I like what he did because originally he was not a speaker at the DNC, and he was like, that sucks, and you're not supposed to say that publicly. And then they were like, oh, they kind of panicked. They panicked that they were going to piss off the Yang Gang. They panicked that they were going to piss off Asian Americans because there's almost no Asians at the convention. So they're like, yeah, Andrew, we meant, of course, the final night. We'll give you 37 seconds. And so that's what happened there. So politics.
Yeah, I mean, and look, Democrats definitely need to make sure that they have the representation game on lock because it's like literally the only thing they use and weaponize to their advantage. So it's just incredible. But look, I'm glad that he got to speak. It was, and I'm curious if if they're reflecting, if the organizers are reflecting on, how they've kind of changed the format to accommodate many speakers, although every speaker gets like a super short period of time to say anything. So essentially all they get to say is, we need to vote for Biden. This is important. That was really the underlying message in what Andrew Yang said there.
Yeah, so that's right. And that's why a lot of these speeches have been missing substance. And I actually want to talk about something that Andrew did right there in a second. But speaking of representation, look at all these new members on YouTube that just signed up. Bernadette Marks, About to Sleep, ZZZ. Not if you're watching this show, we're full of zingers. Anyway, Chris LL, Azul C, Toma 7, Gabriel Angel. Gabriel, you're our angel. So thank you for all signing up to be members. Already, of course, folks with disagreements. YouTube super chat, Damian McDermott says, Cenk, I disagree when you said Michelle's "they go low" analogy was word salad. She's saying be better than them, but also don't be a pushover. Made sense. Damian, love you, brother, but that's not. Let me put it this way: that's not who I am. And so I get it that Michelle Obama has the privilege to be able to go high because honestly, she's comfortable enough to do that. And I'm not hating on her for it. I'm just saying that's her role and people love her in that role. For me, I'm the guy while Michelle's distracting you going high that kneecaps you. And so that's who I am. And in fact, that's happening right now online. I triggered Republicans by saying if I know anyone that is going to vote for Donald Trump, I lose all respect for them immediately, and I do. I mean it. And so, like tens of thousands of comments go, "How could you?"
Why are they triggered by that? I don't understand. I mean, they supposedly dislike you, right? I mean, they don't respect you. So why are they? I mean, I think about election night 2016 when I said something very similar in regard to the white women who've turned out for Trump, and like saying that I don't respect them, like led to this frenzy. And it's like, why? I'm one person. Clearly, Trump supporters don't believe in anything that we believe in. They don't respect us. So who cares? Like, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, well, Anna, I have an answer for you, and it is fascinating. I talked to a prominent former conservative a couple of weeks ago, and he said they know that they're not right? I knew it, like you know it in your gut, right? And so the thing that triggers them most is if you say that they're bad guys or they're not bright, etc. Because like if somebody tells me, if a Trump supporter tells me, Jake, you're not bright, which they do with regularity, I find that to be the funniest thing I ever heard. A guy who looks up to Trump thinks I'm not smart. Okay, so I do. I think that's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. But when you say it to them, they're super hurt because they kind of know it's right, and that's why they get triggered by it. I'm keeping it real. So you think they think Trump is bright? No, they know he's an idiot, and they know they're following an idiot, and they know they don't know any policy, they don't know anything, and you think they don't know they're being horrible to black and brown people? They know. That's why when you call them indecent or you say you're better than them, nothing triggers them more. Nothing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, no, that's true. That's absolutely. It's been more than 4 years since we did a video where I referred to racists as people who I feel I'm better than, and they can't get enough. Like they're so triggered by that, they're still bringing it up today. And every time they do, I chuckle to myself.
Okay, yeah, no, and I gotta say one last thing about that, because the hilarious irony of someone saying like, yeah, I don't think black people are as good as me. You said you're better than me? I'm so offended. No, but Anna said she's better than you because you're a racist. And if you are not a racist, you wouldn't own that. Like when Anna said that, I didn't think she was saying she was better than me. right? Because I'm not.
I don't go around telling people that I'm better than them, right? Yeah. The whole point of that like video was like this notion that if you're someone who believes in social justice, you're a social justice warrior, you're a bad person, blah blah blah, and like I was responding to that narrative, and there was a very specific story involving racism that we were commenting on in that story, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like. Look, I think that a lot of hatred and racism comes from, yes, ignorance, but also from feelings of deep insecurity. So yeah, having someone tell them, I'm better than you, certainly triggers them. And what I love is when our viewers will read those comments and they'll respond like, yeah, no, she's right though. She's better than you.
Anna, your point was better than mine. I want to come back to it because it's really important. But this is Chris Coons. I want to hear him.
Yeah, let's do it.
Teachers working overtime, especially now. They all deserve a servant leader who knows the dignity of work, who sees them, respects them, fights for them. We need a president who brings people of all faiths together to tackle our challenges, rebuild our country, and restore our humanity. Someone who knows we're called to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. Joe Biden will be that president. Joe's always known this race is a battle for the soul of our country, and he's right. Joe believes. He believes in both the greatness and the goodness of this country. He believes in us and in what we can do together.
My question is, what is your faith, and how would you use your faith in making decisions for our nation?
Well, Reverend, I kind of know what it's like to lose family. And my heart goes out to you. As you may remember, after Barack and Michelle and I were there, and my family, I came back on that Sunday, the regular service, because I had just lost my son. And I wanted some hope, because what you all did was astounding. I don't know if you all know this. All those who died were killed by this white supremacist. They forgave him. They forgave him. The ultimate act of Christian charity. They forgave him. And you know, Reverend, I'm not proselytizing. I happen to be a practicing Catholic. But I went back to the church because I found, particularly, the black church. In this case, with an AME, it was not an Episcopal church. I found that there's that famous phrase from Kierkegaard, faith sees best in the dark. I find the one thing it gives me, and I'm not trying to proselytize, I'm not trying to convince you to share my religious views. But for me, it's important because it gives me some reason to have hope and purpose.
Just remember, Joe Biden goes to church.
Okay, so Chris Coons is a guy that is very conservative. He's one of the most conservative Democrats. By the way, he's in a primary. That primary hasn't happened yet. You should vote against him. But he might be out of that seat anyway, maybe. He's very good friends with Joe Biden. That's part of the reason why he's speaking. He was he was actively involved in senior leadership in the Biden campaign. They're obviously both senators from Delaware, and Coons is the co-chair of the prayer breakfast. So his speech, I didn't mind at all. That was a perfectly fine religious speech. I'm not religious. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it doesn't have to. He's speaking to other people who do feel that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But going to the prayer breakfast, that enables a right-wing religious group. And they send people across the world to try to pass laws against homosexuality, including ones that call for their execution. So Chris Coons, I think, I'm putting it very mildly, should not participate in the prayer breakfast and not have anything to do with the family. But Democrats have done it for decades. Hillary Clinton did it. I think it's gross. Jonathan Larson, TYT Investigates, broke a number of stories about this. You can look it up on tyt.com. They also invited the Russians in some really bizarre scheme that they ran, and Coons is still participating in that. And he might be your next Secretary of State. It's all right. This is the Atlanta mayor. There's so many things more I want to say, but let's listen.
Continues. I'm proud to have grown up in this city, educated in its public schools, and blessed to have known our hometown heroes like Dr. Joseph Lowry, Dr. C.T. Vivian, and our teacher, our friend, our conscience, our congressman, John Lewis. He walked gently amongst us, not as a distant icon, but as a God-fearing man who did what he could to fulfill the as yet unfulfilled promise of America. People often think that they can't make a difference, like our civil rights icons. But every person in the movement mattered. Those who made the sandwiches, swept the church floors, stuffed the envelopes. They too changed America, and so can we. The baton has now been passed to each of us. We've cried out for justice. We have gathered in our streets to demand change. And now we must pass on the gift John Lewis sacrificed to give us. We must register and we must vote. In his parting essay written to us, Congressman Lewis expressed his pride in the activism that has swept our country. And he reminded us that if we fail to exercise our right to vote, we can lose it. There are those who are disgracefully using this pandemic to spread misinformation and interfere with voting, forcing many in 2020 to still risk their lives to exercise their sacred right to vote. A right that has already been paid for with the blood, sweat, tears, and lives of so many. So let's stand up for our children, our children's children, and for this great democracy that our ancestors worked to build, and let's vote. And let's organize to get others to vote with us. You can help make this happen by texting VOTE to 30330. We know how important it is that we elect real leaders like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, people of honor and integrity who hold justice close to their hearts and believe that the lives of my 4 Black children matter. In the words of womanist poet Audre Lorde, your silence will not protect you. Congressman Lewis would not be silenced, and neither can we. We cannot wait for some other time, some other place, some other heroes. We must be the heroes of our generation because we too are America. Our votes can be our voice.
There was something deep down within me, moving me, that I could no longer be satisfied or go along with an evil system.
Life was extremely dangerous when we were growing up. John Lewis had the respect of everybody because he was the one who demonstrated the most courage. He'd been beaten and knocked down and get up and go to find another battle. John was focused on ending voter suppression, and it wasn't that he was a great orator, it's that he was a great spirit. The power of spirituality and humility, and the willingness to suffer rather than to inflict suffering.
One of the things that John has taught us is that, yeah, you may have to sacrifice, but if you're sacrificing for a cause, something bigger than you, and you really believe in it, then you will have people following you.
We do not get meaningful legislation out of this Congress. We will march through the South, through the streets of Jackson, through the streets of Danville, through the streets of Cambridge, through the streets of Birmingham.
I think he is the singular figure that has tried to carry out the work of our nonviolent campaigns into the halls of Congress.
From day one, John Lewis was a role model for the members of Congress, whether they were freshmen or here a long time, because he brought with him a kind of heft, a weightiness of purpose.
I got arrested a few times during the 60s. 40 times. And since I've been in Congress, another 5 times. The means by which we struggle must be consistent with the end we seek.
Someone who has navigated thorny issues of policy, not by castigating alone, but by also encouraging people to be better than they think they can be.
Today, we are considering a fair housing measure which not only protects our nation's minorities, but it protects the needs of those with disabilities and families with children. How long do we have to wait before we decide to ban assault weapons? We have another opportunity to bring more of our citizens into political participation. I have on my marching shoes. That's right. I'm fired up. I'm ready to march.
And all of these decades later, while he and others of his generation achieved much, we're still fighting against police brutality and fighting for our voting rights. And so we best honor him by continuing to fight the good fights that he fought, by staying in good trouble.
Together, let's fight for what's right, no matter how long or how dark the night.
We will create the beloved community. We will redeem the soul of America. As a nation and as a people, we will get there.
Climb to the and one day we'll win together. One day, when the glory comes, it will
be. Okay, so that's a powerful song, but we're not doing songs in our coverage, so that's for another time. So that was a moving tribute to John Lewis. I love that the establishment is now behind his saying of causing good trouble, because they do it as window dressing, but we'll take it and run with it. So trust me that if there's a Biden administration, we'll be causing good trouble. And when they complain about it, we'll be like, good trouble. Okay.
Well, actually, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because it was just an interesting juxtaposition to hear the very last statement made by Keisha Lance Bottoms in her speech. And then it immediately moved to that incredible tribute to John Lewis. That was the first time I actually felt something during this convention. I thought it was beautifully done. I love seeing that old footage because it reminds you and it helps you visualize, what the true history of this country is, the brutality that people had to face just to be considered equal in society. And even after that, of course, people weren't considered equal. So her last statement was, or one of her last statements was, our votes can be our voice. And I actually disagree with that. So I think that voting is actually a very small part of what we should be doing as part of our, I think, civic duty, right? Like, yes, you should vote. You should be involved in the electoral process. It's important for you to cast your ballot. But I think that there's been a lot of propaganda intentionally put out there to make Americans think, just vote and then it's over, and then be complicit, sit back, relax, let the leaders take care of it. And then you go to this like tribute with John Lewis, and honestly, what that represented is what we need to do as a country, right? We do need to hold politicians accountable. It isn't just about casting your ballot, it's about getting active, right? So the civil unrest that's been taking place this year, is important because going out there, taking to the streets and demanding change is much more likely to get politicians to act. Now, with someone like Donald Trump, that's impossible. Donald Trump will exploit the civil unrest for his own political gain, and he'll respond in the most vicious ways, including using federal agents. But I think with someone like Biden, you at least maybe have a chance in getting change, but you have to hold his feet to the fire. You can't just cast a ballot and move on with your life. Because if you do that, then nothing's gonna change, really. Yeah. And then Cenk, I know I'm going on and on, but I just wanna read one quick stat. So Killer Mike posted this graphic on his social media account that like blew my mind. And it compared what Black people were going through in the country in 1968 versus today. And so they looked into Black home ownership in 1968. About 41.1% of Black people in America had home ownership. In 2018, that number jumped up to 41.2%. I'm not kidding, barely even changed. Black incarceration though, in 1968, it was 604 people for every 100,000 Black people. In 2018, that number jumped to 1,730 per 100,000 Black people. So, while the civil rights movement was incredibly important and it, in an optics wise, led to integration in society, in reality, there's still a significant amount of segregation and separation through systemic racism, through our justice system, right? And so the fight needs to continue, and I think that's why we're seeing, Black Lives Matter and all of these protesters demanding change, and that's so important.
Yeah, Anna, first of all, it's my job to go on and on and on, so please. And secondly, no, seriously, on that note, Nixon basically said, we're gonna imprison Black people with the war on drugs, and they did, to the tune of millions of people, and that's a super depressing stat. As you were about to say, the number of Black folks in prison these days, I like braced for impact, and it's triple what it is, roughly triple from 1968. It got worse in that sense. Other things did get better, but that got worse. And I loved when John Lewis said that he got arrested 40 times when he was a civil rights activist. So now when the Democratic establishment tells you not to protest anything, I mean, unless it's convenient for them, so they don't mind the Black Lives Matter protest now. By the way, when they did it before, the Democrats were not in favor of it. Nobody went on Bill O'Reilly and said, how dare you call Black Lives Matter terrorists? No Democrats challenged that at the time, right? I shouldn't say no, African-American Democrats did, but white Democrats and Democrats in leadership didn't want anything to do with Black Lives Matter until George Floyd. Okay, but if you protest them, oh my God, their feelings are so hurt. If you protest the system or the status quo, they can't stand you. So I'm embarrassed to say I've only been arrested once for civil disobedience. I got 39 to go. So, but the important part of that is John Lewis by the end was a politician. He was a good one, and he was better than the rest. And he had the history of being a legendary activist. And he did push Nancy Pelosi towards impeachment, but he was, he was more of a centrist Democrat. And so it's kind of sad to see a guy who was so brave and risked his life over and over again, and was an activist that would put young people today to shame, right? So, oh my God, Sunrise Movement, Just Democrats, and all these young people doing all these amazing things. Are they getting their head busted in? Did they get arrested 40 times? No. John Lewis was 100 times the radical that they were. And so now when I see Democrats telling us largely don't do that, hell no should be your answer. Hell no. Yes, I look up to John Lewis. Yes, I'm going to cause good trouble. And by the way, there were a lot of good statements there. So Andrew Young, when he talked about the courage is the willingness to suffer, not to inflict suffering. 100% right. I love that line. And Keisha Lance Bottoms had the line about don't wait for heroes. You got to be the heroes. Again, that's my language. I love that. Now, in terms of like the optics of this convention, now I'm going to say something that's double-edged here, but Keisha Lance Bottoms was clunky because she's reading from a prompter, and it's super obvious that she's not used to reading from a prompter, right? And she's the mayor of a city. She doesn't often do national addresses. And so, but the reason I bring that up is don't hold it against her. Focus on.
I thought she did great.
Really?
I actually didn't. Yeah, I did. I thought that her speech was good. I mean, she was obviously reading from a prompter, but I thought she did fine, honestly. I thought it was, she had conviction in her voice. I think she delivered it fine. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not important. It might, because my point I was making is if you saw it like I did and it felt a little clunky in reading the prompter or a little less genuine, what I'm asking you to do is listen to the words. The words were genuine and they were very good. So that was a really solid speech. Back to Andrew Yang for a second. He is good at it, and he always looks like a real person, and I think that's a real advantage for him. Whereas the other politicians feel a little bit more politician-y. And he had a stat in there I didn't want to let go, because I've been telling you for 4 days now, we want to hear about policy, we want to hear about numbers, right? Facts, and there's almost none of it. Anytime there's a speech with a fact or a policy, I'm like, yes, right? And so, for example, Andrew Yang said, it's estimated that 42% of the people that are unemployed will not get their job back. That is a huge amount of people, millions upon millions of people. See, that's a fact that's important. Donald Trump destroyed this economy with his response to coronavirus. New Zealand, Germany, South Korea, even China, their economies are nowhere near destroyed. Their economies are fine because they reacted rationally and they took action based on a scientific basis. Our incompetent, buffoonish president led to it raging several times over in this country, 175,000 deaths, etc. But also those millions of jobs that are lost, and that's on him too. It's important to remind people what a disaster Trump's been, and I think they've barely done it in this convention. Almost like so when Obama says he's not up to the job, it's like, whoa, shit, oh my God, Obama said one sentence. Okay, good. He actually said about 4 sentences against Trump. But they should have sent some sidewinders here, man. They should have had fire breathers come out here and tell you what an awful job Trump did. If you're gonna do an ad, also do an ad about everybody's, hey, Joe Biden is the soul of this country. I know you told every speaker on every night to say that. Chris Coons said it again for the 28th time. But this ad is boring, okay? And you have plenty of material to work with. You're up against Beelzebub. Tell people about Beelzebub's horn and his tail, right? So, all right, I want to thank. I want to obviously talk more about it. Let's listen to Deb Holland for a second.
Societies with rich cultures and traditions and communities that had sustained them for millennia on lands they loved and respected. My people, the Pueblo Indians, migrated to the Rio Grande Valley in the late 1200s to escape droughts. We were led to the great river and its tributaries, where we established an agricultural tradition that continues to this day. My people survived centuries of slavery, genocide, and brutal assimilation policies, but throughout our past, tribal nations have fought for and helped build this country. There were those like my Laguna grandparents who worked on our country's railroad, and those like my mother, a Navy veteran who served this country with honor. I stand here today, a proud 35th generation New Mexican and one of the first Native American women ever elected to Congress. I'm a symbol of our resilience as the embodiment of America's progress as a nation. I know we can't take our democracy for granted, especially now as people are dying, as our land is abused, as our Constitution is under attack. We must work for it by getting involved, by registering voters, by voting. Voting is sacred. My people know that. We weren't universally granted the right to vote until 1962, and that fundamental right is more important than ever. Whether your ancestors have been here for hundreds of years or you're a new citizen, know this. Whether we vote and how we vote will determine if our nation's promise of social, racial, and environmental justice will outlast us. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris respect our past and understand our present. They will see us through this crisis of leadership that is plaguing our country, and they will help us to build a better future. Thank you.
Okay, Deb Haaland, as she said, one of the first Native American women to ever be in Congress, and she's among the most progressive Congress people. So I wanted to make sure to hear her, and I like that she's representing folks who don't always get represented. Okay, quick shout out to the members that just joined on YouTube. You hit the join button underneath. We read your name: Barry Eden, Claudio Aros, Hanifa Sebro, Sarkanates, Marty Hunt, and by the way, it turns out C Tomo 7, Azul C, Bernadette Marks, and About to Sleep all upgraded their membership, which is also great. Anna and I, at the end of this broadcast, will do post game for you guys, as we do every day on the regular show as well. So make sure you check that out, and if you're a member, you can watch that, of course, live anytime. And members are the only ones who get the post games, including today's, where we do extra analysis. Okay. So I have more of your comments. I want to read it a little bit later, but I wanted to finish one last thing about Yang. So he has to be on. Everybody thought that was awkward, and that's not what you do in Washington. But I loved it, and it relates back to what Keisha Lance-Bottom said to some degree. Look, don't wait for action. You do it. Oh, I love her. Let's watch Sarah Cooper for a second.
Taken from the mailmen and the mailwomen. Will they be forged? Who is signing them? Who's signing them? What, are they signed at a kitchen table and sent in? Will they be counterfeited by groups inside our nation? Will they be counterfeited, maybe by the millions, by foreign powers?
Let me put this in my own words. I've heard Donald Trump say some pretty unhinged things. I've heard them over and over and over again. But nothing is more dangerous to our democracy than his attacks on mail-in voting during a pandemic. Okay, here's the truth. Donald Trump doesn't want any of us to vote because he knows he can't win fair and square. So whether you plan to vote by mail or in person wearing your mask, it is your vote and it's your right. Don't let Donald Trump take that away from you. For accurate, up-to-date voting information that you can trust, text VOTE to 30330. One more time, text VOTE to 30330.
I'm Alex Padilla, California Secretary of State.
And I'm Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State of Michigan.
Voting is the oxygen of our democracy. It decides elections, and elections change lives. That's why we've seen so many attacks on our right.
Okay, yeah, that's super uninteresting. So, Sarah Cooper, look, this convention can be summarized in two things. Joe Biden is the soul of this nation, or is going to restore the soul of this nation, and vote, whatever you do, vote. Don't forget what happened to Hillary Clinton, vote. Okay, but guys, I love you, and I want every single person voting, and I 100% agree. But tell them what they get when they vote. What's behind door number one? That's more effective. So if you told people, hey, by the way, you'll have higher wages if you vote for Joe Biden, they might think like, oh, Wait a minute, what was that text again? Right?
Yeah, but he'd have to promise higher wages. Like,
yeah. Now it
You'd
should
have
be a
to, like-
layup. I mean, Michael Schur and I talked about this last night. If Biden wins, $15 an hour minimum wage should be an absolute layup. Minimum viable product. Everyone agrees. If they don't do it, they're gonna get. Well, let's put it this way: Kamala Harris ain't winning no primary in 2024 if there's no $15 minimum wage. So hey, it's on you, okay? Kamala, it's your career on the line, so you might want to deliver for some people. Chris Mack just joined in to become a member. You hit the join button below if you're watching on YouTube, and it's a great way to support the show, and it's a great way to get more content. Okay, so. But back to Sarah Cooper for a second now. So if you haven't seen her, she does all those great imitations of Trump. She'll take something Trump actually said, his actual audio, as you saw there, and she'll do hilarious facial expressions. The reason why it's so good is Trump has a panicked way of speaking, but he doesn't look like it. She adds the panic, and she has that great panic face, like, right? And so
Yes.
that makes you go, oh right, he's a scared little boy. That's the genius of Sarah Cooper, and I don't know that I haven't heard others talking about it in that way, but that's what I get out of it. And so
can I add something to that? Yeah, you're absolutely right. And in addition, she like plays the two roles, like it's Trump and then whoever Trump is talking to, and whoever Trump is talking to represents all of us. So like the facial expressions and everything reacting to Trump's craziness is my personal favorite part of it. You know, like in the little skit that we saw right now, when the other party is like, yeah, you know, like it was just my favorite part of it.
Yeah, to me, the best part is when my favorite one is Bunker Boy. When she does the like, I went to the bunker 2.5 times. So went there to inspect it.
So good.
Yeah, absolutely. So last thing about Yang. It's just I haven't been able to finish the thought for 48 minutes now. So I've spoken more about Yang than Yang spoke. So is that, guys? I did the same thing at MSNBC, and you all helped to put me on there. Now it was like 10 years ago.
All right, yeah, we got to get back to Yang later.
Be your own heroes. Go to Cory.
That union job enabled him to support his family, raise my mom, and send her to Fisk University. That's the American dream. Together we work, together we rise. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris know the dignity of all working Americans. They know the urgency and the demand of our dream. But working people are under attack. The wealth gap grows, our middle class shrinks, and poverty persists. Last week, Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Our economy is doing good." While 40 million Americans are at risk of losing their homes, 30 million aren't getting enough to eat, and 5.4 million people have lost their health care because of this crisis. He has failed us. But still, I believe in the dream of our ancestors. Together with Joe and Kamala in the White House, we'll raise the minimum wage so no one who works a full-time job in America lives in poverty. Together, we'll fight for those who keep us healthy, who keep us safe, who teach our children. We'll stand for those who cook and serve and clean, who plant and harvest, who pack, and always those who deliver, whose hands are thick with calluses, like my granddad's were, lifted me high, who held mine when I was a boy. If he was alive, Joe and Kamala, he would be so proud of you. And he'd tell us, take another by the hand and another, and let's get to work. This dream ain't free, you gotta work for it. So like his generation, up and out of the Depression, let's now work together and stand together. And America, together, we will rise.
This is my team. You guys build America, not Wall Street. Unions build America.
That's right. The Americans just want to live meekly comfortable. I've got a wife that works as well. We've got a 17 and a 7-year-old at home, and we're still working. Thanks to our international executive board for getting with General Motors and making sure that it's safe for us to return back to work after 8 weeks of being laid off. I mean, it's a hoax at one point, and now here we are, full blown.
Yep. Well, I tell you what, the future of auto workers in America, and I really believe this, can be as bright as it was back in the late 40s, 50s.
Yes.
Simple reason. It's an iconic industry. It's an American industry. We made it. We made it.
Yes. Thank you.
It's been a very interesting 2020. I've been in the fire service 16 years and never experienced anything like COVID. We had to change our whole tactics, the way we did our day-to-day. And now at a hurricane that just came in 2 weeks ago, and we were almost right on the eye. And I mean, we were doing things we never thought we'd be doing. Water rescues with masks on, having to worry about COVID. It was interesting.
How's your family doing?
Well, I'm a single dad. I have a almost 5-year-old who's in my world. And I'm very lucky that my parents are retired. My mom actually retired right after my daughter was born to help us with her. And she was so looking forward to pre-K, going to the big school, like she says. And then unfortunately, all this COVID came in, and now it's all going to be online schooling, which I'm fortunate. I have my parents, but I do have a lot of guys that are double income families, and they're just trying to figure out how they're going to do it with their kids. What arrangements are they going to have to make? Since they're not going to be going to school, it's going to be online.
It's 2 people in my household. I have a family of 2, and we have grown-up kids that are no longer in the household. But it takes 2 people to build. We have an ongoing goal of a 5-year goal of buying a house in the next 5 years. So hopefully we'll save.
Look, everybody, you talked about the middle class. The fact is that the way middle class people generate wealth overwhelmingly is building up equity in their home. And that's what gets passed on from one generation to the next, the equity in a home.
The middle class is continuously taking hits, and one of the reasons why we're on this call is we realize how important it is to have you in the White House. We need a comprehensive energy policy for renewable resources, which I know you have one. And if we're going to build the middle class, it's about the jobs.
The future really rests on investment. We're going to be investing $2 trillion in infrastructure, ports, bridges, highways, making sure that we have access to do things that really make a difference, like what you're doing at solar facility outside of Harrisburg. I'm a Scranton boy. Central Pennsylvania is okay, but, Northeast. Keep the faith, guys. Right. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
American workers can count on you.
Probably, and his from ending fossil fuel subsidies. He mentioned he mentioned green energy and how that can be an avenue in which we create more jobs, which is great. Let's go after ending those fossil fuel subsidies as well. Let's not pour money into something that we shouldn't be pouring money into.
Yeah, so first of all,
putting that out there.
Yeah, that was quintessential Joe Biden. First of all, it's taped, and they still had a stumble in there. God, I get worried about him. And in terms of like the substance of it, you got a UAW guy. They always throw in a UAW guy. I really think the cars are the future. I don't know about that. Like, it depends. I mean, really, GM cars? I mean, I hope so, but I'm not sure I do actually, given that they're largely run on oil. So, and then he puts in the thing about I'm a Scranton guy. That's why I had the guy from Pennsylvania talking to him. Oh my God, we just got to get to the finish line. 2.5 months. So could Joe Biden be comforting in a time that we need comfort? Yes. Is he going to be incredibly inspiring? This is not going to happen. Okay. So now I'm going to be way more cynical about Cory Booker. And I don't think Cory Booker's a bad guy. And every time that I do a critique of him, I kind of feel guilty about it. I'll be honest. Okay. But it's politician, dude, politician 101. And then my father did this. And this is the kind of story that you tell in a speech like this. Like, on the other hand, okay, I like to give credit. He talked about how there was 5.4 million people lost their health care during the crisis. That's a number that's jarring. And if I was him, I'd have paused there and been like, think about it. One of the largest stadiums, the Rose Bowl, is 100,000 people in the Rose Bowl. What is that? I make sure I get it right. That's 50 Rose Bowls full of people lost their health care. Wow, picture it, right? And Tammy Baldwin. Okay, she's one of the more progressive senators. Let's listen, and then I'll come back to Cory Booker.
Grandkids, they were forced to pay out of pocket for my 3-month hospital stay. I got better, but the insurance companies didn't. They refused to cover me at any cost because I was marked child with a pre-existing condition. We all have stories like this. Stories about a time when the system was rigged against us, when we were counted out, left out, pushed out. Just think of what we've heard these past 4 days. Healthcare professionals who don't have the protective gear they need. Young people whose asthma will get worse as our air quality does. Workers who are afraid of losing their jobs. Each story begs this simple, fundamental question, a question that gets to the heart of the choice in this election. What kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to be a country where millionaires get to dodge taxes, or one where working families get a break? Do we want to be a country where medical bills bury people in debt, or one where healthcare is affordable for all? Or where tens of thousands of people die from a virus? Or where the American dream lives? I think we know the answer to that fundamental question, because most of us want the same things. Good schools in our neighborhoods, racial justice, the freedom to love who we want, dignity in our work, and an economy where small businesses and working families thrive. And over the past months, we've added another to that list, a nation free from COVID. That's why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the only answer in this election. Trust me, they are. You see, there's another part of my story. The part where I ran for office, the part where I served in Congress, the part where I worked with Joe Biden and Barack Obama to make sure kids and grandkids, if they're dependents, can stay on their parents' health insurance until they're 26. We got that done. And yes, it was a big effing deal. That's the America I know. That's the America I love. And that's the America we will be with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House. A nation that plans, a nation that builds, a nation that builds back. Say it with me there at home, a nation that builds back better. Here in Wisconsin, our state motto is just one word: forward. This November, let's move forward and never look back. Thank you.
No other nation can match us.
Okay, let's first acknowledge that Build Back Better is the worst slogan ever in politics, ever. I'm like, build back better. Like it takes a while to even understand what the hell they're talking about. Why do we
be best?
What?
Be best.
Yeah. Okay, so
it reminds me of Be Best. Like that was Melania's whole thing, right?
I know, but Be Back Better is more awkward.
I think so. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna come up with my own version of that later in the program. So you have that to look forward to. Plus, you have me finishing my point on Andrew Yang to look forward to, which I'll probably do in the post game. Anyway, I want to talk about Tammy Baldwin. Tammy Baldwin is a person who I think will vote the right way almost every time when we need her. That's my best guess, okay? And so she's probably top 10 progressive in the Senate. Now, that's damning with faint praise. There are not a lot of progressives. And Tammy Baldwin is also really important and interesting because she's a person that is a product of the times. She'll flow, right? And so right now, the times are status quo and establishment. And so does Tammy Baldwin raise a ruckus? I've never seen it. I'm sure some progressives will say, no, you don't know. But now, Cenk, you don't know. She was really good on Senate Resolution 13ABC1, text 30330, right? And okay, all right, I'd love to hear it, but you don't get much fight from her. But I'm not against her because I think she's going to vote the right way. But that's the reason I'm telling you that, guys, is that you've got to take the Tammy Baldwins of the world and move her in the right direction, because she's happy to move. She's ready to move. I think she even wants to move, right? But right now, she's not going like, Medicare for all, right? No, like at best, she's like, Medicare for all, right? But I'll give this speech about how all these people have lost their health insurance. I won't mention that Joe Biden isn't going to give it to them, of course, right, at this convention. But in a world where progressives push hard enough, Tammy Baldwin could become a champion. They claim that they considered her for vice president. They didn't really consider her, and you can see they're not. My job is to be honest, not electrifying. So when she said something, the big effing deal, Anna made some movement like, yeah, right.
Because there's this like ongoing trend of Democratic politicians and also anchors on like CNN and MSNBC who are trying to be edgy. So they'll throw in like a curse word here or there, but like they have to censor the curse word. So it comes across as a little goofy. But yeah, I thought her speech was fine. Yeah. She doesn't need to come up. She doesn't need to do the edgy thing. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Just relax. It's gonna be okay.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.